So let's say string s. Okay, Venkat, we are getting some disturbance
Yeah,
from your side.
sorry. Yes.
Yeah. So string s, let's say I put a string here, and in double quotes what I'll do is I'll write hello world. For now let me use hello only. So this is the string that I created, and yesterday I said string is an object. So s is an object. If we want to know what is the length of s, so what we can do is we want to know the length of s, so we can say int length is equal to, so I'm declaring a variable length because length will always be integer, and I'm going to take that from s dot length. So s dot length is a function, and we are calling that function to get the length. Now if we want to print the value of length, so I'll say sys out control space, and I'll say length is, and I can do a plus here like we talked about yesterday, and I can say length is plus length. So what will happen is the output will come as length is, here the length is count of characters. If you see there are 5 characters, if I go back here and say hit the play button, the output is coming as length is 5. If I change this to hello, now what output do we expect? If I run it again,
6.
6, because we have increased one character, now it's coming as 6. Now can someone tell what will be the output now? I have given a space here.
7.
It will be 7. Right? So inside the double quotes, even if we type a space, space is a valid character that is also counted. Like this string has one character which is empty character. Character doesn't mean it has to be alphabet. It can be anything. It can be a digit. It can be any special character. It can be bang. It can be at the rate. All these are counted as characters. So whatever number of characters we type, they may be visible characters or invisible characters, like space or tab are invisible characters. So in that way, it will give the length of how many overall characters are there in our string. And string is a data type that will be used quite often. So whenever we have an object will typically give us some functions that we can call, and using the functions we can interact with that object. Another function, if I want to know how many functions this s provides, so I can say s dot, and you see it lists all the functions that s provides me. Another function of interest is if I use char@, function. See, this is a string. In string there will be some characters, so I'll modify it back to hello. It has 5 characters. The first character that we have, h, we say that is at index 0. So characters in the string are counted from 0 index. That's in computers, the counting always starts from 0. So if I ask you what is the character at index 2, can you tell me what is the character in this string at index 2? It is
1.
it is L.
First L.
Yeah, first L, right? So that is at 2. If I say at 4, what is the character at index 4?
That's O.
That's O, right? So programmatically, if we want to find out that what is the character at any given index, and that question only S can answer. So what should be the function using which we can ask S that tell us what is the character at a given index? Like for length, we call the function length. And whenever we call a function, we write the function name, we put the round brackets. Some functions take input values, some functions do not take input values. So if I say s dot char, you see char@ is a function. When I type that, it also gives me description of the function. Here it says returns the character value at a specified index. That means you tell the index, it will return the character back. So if I say give me character at index 4, now when we are calling this function, it will return some value back to us. Sorry, char@ it should be, I have mistyped that. So char@, we are asking what is the character at index 4. Now when we call this function, it is going to return us something. The return value we can take in another variable. So I can say char c equals this. Now I can say char at index 4 is plus c. Now if I do this, again I go and run the program. Now this is going to say length is 5 char at index 4 is O. If I change the index, let's say 2, it will say char at index 2 is, okay, I did not save the program, that's why it gives us this box. It says save and launch. We say always save before launching. We say okay. So now it says char at index 2 is L, and that L will be the first L because I have given 2 duplicate characters in this. So the crux of this discussion, the thing that I want to point out is, if we have got any object, we should be aware what functions that object gives us so that we can interact with the object. Now we will apply this analogy to real world entities, and I'll ask you certain questions. Let's say mobile phone is a class. When we say mobile phone is a class, it's a data type. Your phone is also a mobile phone, my phone is also a mobile phone. So class is nothing but a data type. We talked about this data type, which we say user defined data type. And reason it is called a class is because it represents a class of objects or a category of objects. So if we say mobile phone is a class, your phone, specifically if I say mobile phone is a class, then my phone with IMEI number X is an object because we can identify that uniquely. Car is a class. My particular car with a given registration number with a given color is an object. So if we can uniquely identify one instance in real world, one entity in real world, we say that's an object, but that belongs to a class. We all are objects of a class person, or we can say I'm an object of a class male or gents. Ladies are objects of class lady. So this is the distinction between a class and an object. So class is just the category, or you can say class is just a data type, and we are the variables of that data type which can be uniquely identified. So uniquely identifiable thing is an object. Now when we talk about objects, so if we say mobile phone, this is a class, and let's say Sandeep's phone. Now in this line that I have written, mobile phone is a data type, Sandeep's phone is an object. Now what can be done with this object? Can you tell what do we do typically with our phone?
Call.
Yeah, we make a call, right? So Sandeep phone dot, this is how we interact with the object. So call will be a function on the mobile phone, and I put 2 round brackets. Now the call is a function. You should think in our mind, does this function require any input parameter from us?
Mobile number.
Yeah. So when we are making call, phone certainly needs the input from us. Phone wants to know who do we want to call. So either it will be a mobile number or a person name, because phone gives us all the freedoms and flexibilities. So let's say right now we stick to call needs a mobile number, phone number from us. And phone number, what will be the data type of phone number?
Integer.
Numeric.
Integer. Right now,
Integer.
let's go with a simple one, integer. So let's say, okay, this is a phone number. So it takes an integer from us. Now, whenever we dial this number, does this function return anything to us?
Yes.
What will it return?
Conversation.
Conversation, or probably some hint that it is connected or disconnect, or phone is busy. Some kind of clue will come to us, right? Right. So possible answers are, it will say, okay, other phone is busy, not reachable, or it will simply say, okay, it got connected. Then you start conversation. Going forward, do the conversation, because call was one functionality, doing conversation is another functionality. So it returns something. For now, I'll simply assume it will return us an int, which will tell the status of the call. Fair? So in these lines, what we have done is, we are simply saying, if we have an object, it is very common in real world, the way we interact with the object, that's how we write code. Code is more readable. Looking at these 2 lines of code, you can say, okay, we have Sandeep's phone, and using Sandeep's phone, we are making a call to this number, and we are getting the status back. So if this number is invalid, we can say if status is equal to, or we say status dot equals. Okay, equals is another function that I'll introduce. If status is connected, we say test passed. Otherwise test failed. System.out.println println test passed, else test failed. So this is how we write our code, and we will be doing some exercises about this. Test failed. But before that, the things to keep in mind, what is the takeaway, why we are discussing all this is, there are certain things that we keep in our mind. One is, here what we are doing in this line on the right side, we are calling the function. And when we call a function, we just pass the values that a function expects. And it is purely on the developer of that function, whosoever has developed that function, whatever it takes, whatever it returns, we have to stick to that. In our code that we wrote, we use the function char@. So what I did, if I just want to see again what is the char@, I can go here and see char@ is taking an input parameter from us whose data type is int, which is an index. If I would have passed 2 in double quotes, it will give a compilation error. The compilation error is coming and it is saying the method char@ in the type string is not applicable for a string argument. So whatever the function expects, we have to pass that type of parameter. So this is, we have to stick to the rules. Now when I call this function, I can go back here just to see the function definition again. I just put the cursor here, do control space, it opens up this window, and this is the function name. It takes int parameter and it returns char. This is the documentation of the function that we are looking at. By looking at the documentation only, we get to know how we should be using the function. And now we are using this function in this way, that we give an index and we get a character back. Same way, if we want to compare two strings, so string s is there, which is hello. I define string t and I'll say bye. Now I want to know the string s and string t are same or not. So typically if they were integers, we would have done like this: if s double equals t, because double equals is the way to compare. This is a comparison operator. But since strings are objects, with objects we should not be using these operators, we should be using the function. So I put s dot, we see equals is a function. If I say equals, now this function is taking an object from us. It takes an object. You can say when a function takes object, you can pass any class's object. You can pass string class object or any other class that is in Java. Object is a very general data type. Like if somebody says I need a person, when he says I need a person, that means we can send male or female, because his ask has come as I need a person. So that way object is a very generic type which says I need any object, and we can pass any object here. So when we are comparing s and t, we pass t here. So this line is saying s is being compared to t, and the return type of this function equals that we are using, if we see, this function returns as a boolean, and inside if we write the expressions whose value evaluates to a boolean. That means if they are equal, we'll type the message here, sysout equal, else we say not equal. Now if I run this code, do we expect the output equal or not equal from this piece of code?
Shouldn't it be by?
No.
It should be not equal.
Yeah, it should not be not equal.
Yeah, because it will compare this, and the result of this will be boolean, which will say false, because it will compare hello and bye. So let's run it and it says not equal. Now let's say if I go and change it to hello, now it will be equal or not equal?
It will be
Not equal.
It will be not equal.
Yeah, it will be not equal, because whenever we do the equal comparison, what it does is it checks the character and it considers capital and small characters to be different characters. So since this is small, this is capital, it will say they are not equal. So if I go and run it, still it says not equal. But if I change this to small h, now what will it say?
equal.
Yeah, now it will say they are equal. Right? So that, yeah,
One question here.
sure, Ravi.
One question here. Yeah, before if, after if you have opened two curly braces,
Yes.
two sets of curly braces,
Mhm.
why is it so? Because in the last program, if and then all after that you had put down statement like else
Yeah.
in the output.
Yeah,
But
valid.
here you are opening to.
Yeah, valid point. So when we write if else, see inside if there is only one statement, right? If there is one statement inside the if, these parentheses, these brackets become optional. So we can write it or not, but I will suggest right now as a best practice, let's start putting brackets every time we write if and else. For single statement it's optional. Even if I remove it, results will not change because there is single statement with if, single statement with else. They will automatically be attached to them. See, now also we are getting the same output. But right now just stick to this convention of writing curly bracket always with if and else. Right, Ravi, answers your question?
Yeah, it answers. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, so that was about if we know about a class, any class that we use, it will have functions for sure, and we can call the functions by looking at the documentation of the function. We should be aware which function we are using. Like typically we don't go to a doctor to buy a car because we know if doctor is an object, he's not the one who sells cars. If we want to buy the car, we'll go to a car dealer because car dealer is an object who deals with buying or selling cars. So whenever we are using object of any class, we should be aware what that class means, what kind of function that class exposes. So if we are using string class, we can go to net and we can say string javadoc. Standard Java classes, if you type in Google and say string javadoc, it will tell there is a string class. This is a documentation that comes from Oracle. And if you go here at the bottom here, it will say method summary. All the methods, all the functions, the function, the term that I'm using, it's anonymous to method. All the functions of string class are documented here. If you see the first one, it says char@, is a function name. It takes an integer index. This is the documentation, and it returns a char. And it says returns the char value at the specified index. If I click this char@, it will give little detailed documentation of this function, what it takes and what it returns. So this is the return type. This is the input parameter to the function. And there might be some functions who do not take any input parameter. So we'll roughly talk about them as well. So when we talk about a function, we say function syntax is, there are two things in function. One is calling function and second is defining a function. Here in this line, can you tell me we are calling the function or we are defining the function?
We are calling it.
Yeah. We are calling the function, right?
Yeah.
The definition of this function has already been given by the developers who wrote string class. So when we are calling the function, people get confused that when we are calling this function and this takes int index, we start writing, okay, here we should write int and the value. No, this is something that at the time of calling we should not write int. We should just pass the value because we know that function takes an integer. Let's just give the integer. We don't have to write int. At the time of definition, this thing that you are seeing, function definition is typically this. I will say this is a function definition here. Code of function goes here, or body of the function goes here. This complete thing that you are saying, this is the function definition. Sorry, I have written it at a wrong place. This is the definition. Calling is simply s dot char at 0. So whenever we are calling the function, we should be aware what all it takes. Some functions may take 2 parameters. If a function takes 2 parameters, we also just do a comma separated. Just taking an example, let's say it takes 2 parameters, int x. So we can pass the first parameter, we can pass the second parameter. That's how we will use the function. And our today's class will be focused on mainly using the functions. We are not going to define our functions as of now. But make sure you understand this distinction of calling a function and defining a function. One last point about the function is there can be some functions which do not return a value to us. And those functions are, I will give you an example of such a function. Let's say I ask a function that I'm giving you my name, you just output that name. So the function name I'm saying is output a message. Rather than name, I'm saying, okay, output a message. This is the function name. To this function, what I'll do is I'll pass a name. I will say this is my name. Okay, I'm just giving the definition right now. String s. The function takes s as input, which is a string, and its return type will be void. When we say function has a return type void, that means function is not going to return us anything. So this function does not return anything. Void dictates that. This function is returning a char. If it is returning something, we can take the value back like this. We can say char c is equal to, give me the value that is coming back from the function. But when we call a function which is a void function, we simply call like s dot output message, and we pass a string. This is my message. That's it. Reason we did not take its output in some other variable is because it does not return us anything. In real world analogy, if we talk about, let's say we give some money to our friend and we say, you're going to temple, just go and put this money in the temple. We don't expect anything in return. Just we want to send that money and put it in front of God. So that kind of function is a void function when we are not expecting anything in return. And most of the time you will see these kind of functions are the functions who take input values and do the work without telling us back what work has been done. So syntax of function should be clear, and going forward, like next week, we will start writing our own function. So I'll come back to this point once again, that how do we define a function. For now, if this is the point that has stuck in our mind, that should be good enough. And most of the exercises you will be doing on MentorPick, you just have to write code inside a function. So this thing has already been taken care and written for you. You mainly have to write the code. Now coming back to this example, can you tell, is main a function?
Is it definition?
Yeah, you have to tell me.
Yeah, it is a function.
It is a definition. If we just remove public static from here, then this is exactly similar to what we were talking about. We said function will have a return type. What is the return type of main?
Void.
Void. Then function has a name. What is the name of our function?
Name.
Main. What is the input parameter of the function? Whatever goes in the round brackets. What does main take as input parameter?
Any string value.
Yeah, string. There is a double bracket arg. So args is the argument whose type is, this is called string array. So that is, main is also a function, and main is a special function that is called by JVM, Java Virtual Machine. So anytime we are running our program, Java Virtual Machine will search for the main function in our bytecode, and it knows, oh, this is the starting point, I have to start executing from here. So main is a specialized function that we don't call, Java Virtual Machine calls, and that code is hidden from us. We don't have to worry about that code. But our code we write here. So in this code, we can use variables, we can create objects, we can call functions on those objects. So this is what we mainly care about.